Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today we got a game in the Dunkirk for you. We got JoJo on the screen, and we're on one of the new maps. I think it's Crash Zone, if I recall. Yesterday we were talking about creating passive crossfires, kind of demonstrated that on Fault Line with the Sol Center spawn kind of pinning the north and the northeast due to the expected movement of the team here. This one's going to be what I would call like an active or actively creating crossfires. I guess shorthand will just call it an active crossfire. But in this situation, rather than kind of holding a certain position and relying on the enemy team to move into the crossfires, which you can do on certain maps if you understand generally how they play, this one we're going to kind of actively create our own crossfires. So this was a new map. I think as the tendencies develop, I'd say, as in this game, about 2/3 of the teams are usually going to go to C, and then roughly a third will kind of play this eastern side. So we're going to move even more to the east here, kind of try and get some separation. When you're trying to actively create crossfires, the goal is to get separation between you and your fellow battleships. In an ideal world, what you want to do is get enough space between you and the battleship to the next to you that if the target points at you, your friendly battleship has a 90-degree angle towards his side, or vice versa. If the target decides to angle at your friendly battleship, then you would have a 90-degree angle. So that's kind of creating like a right angle on the map. And you can create angles, but you have to look at the map, number one, to create the angles. But spacing is kind of key. And so early on, typically to create crossfires actively, you kind of have to space yourself out. And that involves moving to the flanks. Some battleships play better in the center. Some do a little bit better when they try to achieve flanking positions. Hood here, we thought he was going to angle for a while, so he loaded up HE, but then, of course, as soon as we do, he goes full broadside. So we got a Hood and a Charlemagne. We also have the possibility of a destroyer over here until the enemy proves that there's a destroyer, and we can keep an eye on the map to figure that out. We have to assume there's a destroyer over here. But if you look on the map right now, I mean, that the outline of their destroyer looks like it was just right on the edge of C there. Odds are pretty decent that he's squirted off of that. So if you evaluate the map and you see something like that, you can kind of start to think maybe both of those destroyers are on C. Anyway, we get back to the AP rounds, which the Hood begins to angle back a little bit, but we do want to have the AP ready for that Charlemagne as well. Both of these ships that were over here were showing a willingness to show broadside, and in that case, you just might as well just keep the AP loaded. I mean, if you're really for battleships, the only time I'm going to load HE rounds is if I know that I have a target that I need to deal with that just is refusing to present an unangled presentation to me. So Charlemagne is fully broadside there. We go ahead and try and punish him. Didn't get a whole lot of damage there. A couple overpens, looks like, and a bounce, but that's all right. It's kind of the threat of the wicked salvo. And then we got our DD. He's content to sit in the smoke and let us spot. That's fine. He's getting torps down. He's shooting his guns, and he's generally helping us out here. So if you got a destroyer that uses the smoke, and he's trying to use it too, and there's the salvo we were looking for. If you got a destroyer that's trying to use the smoke offensively, like this one, I think it's probably a USN DD, just looking at the rate of fire and the smoke duration, then try and stay out of their smoke. Try and maintain lines aside. Let them use that, because that is part of their offensive toolkit, and it's very frustrating as a destroyer if you pop the smoke. I don't know if the smoke already dissipated. I don't know if that's USN, but whatever the destroyer is, he was intentionally using the smoke to get some offense for himself, and he was being fairly effective in his position. Looks like he probably took out that Hood with some torps. So, let's reward that. So let's keep spotting for him. Sometimes a destroyer will deploy smoke, and then, this line of sight goes away for everyone, and then everyone just sits there for 2 minutes wondering what the heck's going on. Anyway, now what we're doing, getting back to the crossfires, And after we've killed that guy, you can see we're moving forward. Number one, we want to put pressure on A, which is going to be a key to this map, I think. Holding these two that are close to each other, especially if the main battle is going to be on C, I think that's going to be the profitable play. Because, you know, while a lot of times the battle is going to be one on ship coming on the west, if you can hold these two caps, get those points coming in, it's going to be kind of hard to come back from that. But anyway, as we're pushing forward now, keep an eye on the map, and you can see when we look at these ships, right angle, right angle, right angle, just broadsides for days over there. And they're all bogged down with our team. You know, in their minds, they're probably evenly fighting down there. We do have like a Pensacola that's, for some reason, charging into the middle of a bunch of battleships. Maybe you want to check the map or work on the position. Capturing C, not worth trading a ship there. But anyway, getting back to our position, because we move forward, we're not just sitting in the back the entire game, looking through the telescopes. No, we want to create our own crossfires by moving around the map. So initially, we kind of created mini crossfires just by moving to the right, to the east, kind of opening up that flank or flanking. And then here we push forward to the north. Now we have basically crossfires in the entire team, and they're really in a hard way now. So kind of the process for, you know, creating your own crossfires. Number one, you got to keep an eye on where your teammates are. Do not clump up into a black hole. It just doesn't work. Then the enemy can angle to your entire team if you're all stacked on top of each other. So step number one, get out of each other's butts. Number two, you kind of have to clear your flank, and you want to do it as quickly as possible. You know, I assume that's usually people's goals, but sometimes they can get it done quicker than others. Anyways, once you can kill those ships, then you can move forward. What's preventing you from moving forward in a battleship? The threat of destroyers and the threat of crossfires yourself, because the further you get forward, if you haven't cleared your front, then you're gonna have to angle towards the ships that are close to you in the front of you. But then the ships across the map, if they're paying attention, they'll start lobbing shells into the broadside, as we're about to do to these guys. And again, they have no idea what's coming here. They haven't looked over here. I mean, the Bayern, we took a kind of a pot shot, so he's probably aware of us. Ismail, not a chance. He has no idea we exist. Get the shot off, and of course, Ismail, Russian battleships getting shot in the side. What does that mean? It means you're going to die very quickly. So, turn the phone off. Sorry about that. But, this is the situation that they're in now. They still kind of have to angle towards the ships that are in front of them. And, the closer the battleship is to you, the more dangerous it is. So we're still kind of considered the secondary threat. But in reality, we're now a threat that really they're going to have a hard time dealing with. And we do want to continue to move forward here, by the way. We're not sitting on the moon looking through telescopes. No, we're applying that principle as well, where the closer we can get to them, the more accurate our shots are, the more penetration those shells have when they meet the steel of the enemy, and the more effective overall. So we're still, look at the map right now. We basically have a right angle to anything that the other people on our team, the spacing. Battleships, if you can get spacing between you, you're going to have much more effectiveness. Maybe the entire team, the enemy team, angles towards you, but that's going to give your team shots at the broadside. So just by looking for opportunities to create spacing, doing so smartly, we are isolated right now, which is kind of a dangerous proposition, but we're doing it in a smart way. Number one, we knew there weren't destroyers over here. Number two, we had destroyer escort. And number three, we were aware that most of these guys' attention was going to be on the other people on my team initially. So by the time we started really dealing some damage, they were going to have to, react at that point. Bayern, here's an example of kind of pushing too far forward. I kind of lost track of the Bayern. I think he disengaged around an island. We lost him. And now, because I've moved forward, we've kind of pushed into a crossfire. And this is what we were talking about when the two things that are limiting battleships' ability to move forward. The destroyer threat and the threat of putting yourself in a crossfire. That's what happened with the Bayern. You can see he's pretty close to a right angle. We kind of changed our angle a little bit to minimize the damage from him, but we were forced to stop and then probably back up at this point in time, and that's just because we lost track of him visually and move a little bit too far forward. So again, we do want to move as far forward as possible without creating these right angle opportunities into our own ship. Anyway, we're going to start returning fire on him. But at this point in time, you know, obviously we got 20 ships to their one, so the game's kind of wrapped up. But hopefully that gives you kind of ideas. Battleships, you know, it's kind of the... Well, I mean, at low tiers, when people start playing battleships, you see them moving around quite a bit, which is usually more helpful than this little fear that kicks in at like tier 6 or 7. I just don't understand why it does. I guess people look around and they say, oh, nobody moves at this tier. Okay, well, I don't move either. Oh, everybody clumps up at this tier. Well, I clump up too. Now, these are bad habits, really bad plays that for some reason are becoming ingrained in the player base. We need to break these. We need to be looking for opportunities to move, which is key for battleships, but you got to just do so smartly. So you need to be able to figure out as a battleship player, is there a destroyer threat in the area? And how you do that, we can get into it, and we've talked about it before, we can cover it again in the future, but being able to evaluate where the destroyers are, find them on the map, that's key, and then being able to look at the map and say, am I too far forward, or can I go far forward without getting shot in the sides? Those are basically the two skills, and then looking at the map, okay, if I move in this position, I'm going to be shooting the entire enemy team in the sides. Those are the things you want to be looking for. So anyway, that's a look at the Dunkirk. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave them below. I do love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.